would like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Education to order. Today is October 7th. I'm going to welcome everybody here tonight, our students and our community members. If we can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I can get a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 6-0. First on our agenda, we have an opportunity for awards recognition presentations. Tonight we will be doing a presentation for our national semifinalist. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin, and I will invite Ms. Carter to the podium. Tonight we will celebrate the National Merit Scholarship Semifinalists. We have some of the students present this evening. Many of them are involved in a variety of activities, I assume, as well. And so, Ms. Carter, can you do your presentation?
Absolutely. Good evening. It's another great day to be a Novi Wildcat. My name is Nicole Carter, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of serving as the principal of Novi High School. Thank you, Dr. Matthews, cabinet members, and the Board of Education for this special opportunity to recognize Novi High School's Class of 2022 National Merit Scholarship Semifinalist. These students are a shining example of what it means to be a product of the Novi Community School District, and we are all so very proud of the achievement of these students. The National Merit Scholarship Program itself, approximately 1.5 million students in more than 21,000 high schools enter into this program. Only 16,000 of these students qualify as semifinalists. We have 29 students who have qualified. I'm going to say that again. The Novi Community School District has 29 students who have qualified, which is a remarkable feat. These students represent less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors. These students are by far our brightest and best. Combined, they have taken 286 advanced placement courses. They have taken 28 international baccalaureate courses. They have taken 31 dual enrollment courses. And now for the moment that you've been waiting for. When I call your name, please approach the podium to retrieve your certificates. Please note that half of our recipients had a scheduling conflict this evening from dual enrollment, college courses, athletics, work, etc. These all-stars are very busy and definitely committed. So without further ado, and I will read off every student's name even if they are unable to be here with us this evening. Venkatesh Alagupan, Varnika Chandra, Evelyn Cho, Jimmy Dye, Javesh Daninavic, Olaf De Souza, Sean Garg, Grace Hart, Netra Jayalapula, Rithij Jutor, Leanne Kim, Takoya King, Ankita Kumar, Nubia Kumar, Rachel Lee, Anjani Mali Reddy, William Mung, Manvitha Magliapuli, Ruhin Kadir, Srinidhi Charakali, Rashith Shilam, Nuri Shankar, Jayshri Sundram, Anita Tan, Julia Trau, Abhishek Vengapuram, Amy Wu, Melissa Yu, and Eric Zhang. Please join me in giving these phenomenal students a round of applause. In addition addition, I would like to invite you to take a look at this phenomenal webpage that we have dedicated to Novi High School's National Merit Scholarship Semifinalist. Going to this page, you'll have an opportunity to get an opportunity to see them doing something that they love. They'll share some insights, their best quote, their favorite teacher. It'll give you an opportunity to know their story outside of just the fact that they're able to achieve on this test. These students are phenomenal. I see in this space right now our student body president. I know on the list we've got presidents of other clubs and organizations, from the Student Mental Health Committee, you name it, these kids do it, and they are phenomenal. And I would be remiss not to congratulate the parents, guardians, friends, and family who are here this evening to celebrate this awesome honor. So on behalf of Novi High School, Novi Community School District, congratulations and well done.
Ms. Carter, I think you have several of them here, so if you have their certificates, they could stand and come join you, and we could see their faces tonight.
So we had them sorted by who was here, who was not going to be here. So it might be difficult for me.
No, I gotcha. So as Principal Carter is sorting that out there, I had the privilege of being a high school principal for 3 years in a neighboring district. And I can say to the youngsters over there, the youth, 3 years of being a high school principal, I had 0 national merit semifinalists in 3 years. You are exceptional. You are, in my mind, an indication of this entire community. Many of you have been here, and you can talk about what elementary school that you went to and attended. Maybe it's Village Oaks, maybe it's Orchard Hills, maybe it's Woods, maybe it's Parkview, maybe it's Deerfield. But the sacrifice it took for you to get here and how you represent this community is amazing. So thank you sincerely to each of you. I think we can sometimes take for granted what an incredible place this is. And so I just want to provide some context, and that is amazing. 29 of you who have worked so incredibly hard to be here. So thank you so much, and coming through the rain and all that good stuff to be here. I'm still looking behind your shoulder there, seeing if I can provide some more commentary there to help out Principal Carter.
Actually, I'm going to empower our student body president.
I love it. That's delegation.
To assist me with this, since the certificates got shambled here a little bit.
That's all right. It's a good thing.
Auction them off.
Oh, well, I'm going to give you your moment to. Not here. Not here. Here. Here.
So for the students and families, we'll let you know that right after Ms. Carter gives you your certificate, we invite you to sit back down so that everybody can get their certificate. And then we'll take a short recess so that you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting, although you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. So,
Principal Carter, are these all 12th graders?
Yes.
this the test is based on the
Test that they take their junior year.
test they take their junior year. Yes.
Where's Tiffany?
So without further ado, Ruheen Kadir. Javesh. Olaf. Ripage. Kuya. Navia. Rambitha. Anita. Abhishek. Amy. Melissa. Last but definitely not least, Varnica.
So we would ask all the students to come up and stand in front of the audience, and we'll give you one more round of applause. So why don't you come up to the front here?
Face
Don't be
down,
shy.
come on in. See y'all at the honors convocation.
And now if you want to leave, you can, or you can stay and see good government in action here.
Run away.
I just want to stand.
Sounds perfect.
It's actually better than I thought.
Alrighty.
I got a call earlier.
Well, it's always great to have our students with us at any event, especially a board meeting that sometimes has one or two people, and tonight has quite a few. If you guys don't all want to be on one side of the room, then move to the side and move up front. But if you want to be a majority on this side of the room, that's fine as well. So we are going to move on in our agenda, and we have our first opportunity for comments from the audience. This is related to agenda items. So if you are here to comment on anything on the agenda, this would be the time, or there will be a second opportunity for comments from the audience. I'm just going to read a short little blurb. Individuals who wish to address the board must identify themselves, their address. You can write that on the green card that's on the back table. Mrs. Holly collects those so she can notate who's here, and we can follow up if needed after the meeting. And any organization they may represent. The board and individual board members will not directly respond to comments or questions that arise during the public portion of our meeting. Individuals who wish to address the board shall direct their comments to the entire board and not to individual board members, the superintendent, or school district employees or members of the audience. Behavior that is intemperate, abusive, defamatory, or discourteous, or that otherwise interferes with ordinary conduct and timely completion of the board meeting is strictly prohibited. So that being said, we're always open to hearing comments from the audience. So if anybody has anything that they'd like to say at this juncture, they can walk up to the podium and state your name. And if not, we'll have another opportunity for you. Okay, seeing no one step up, we will move on in our agenda. So the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have two items. We have approval of the minutes and approval of field trips, which is the fall 2021 MHSAA overnight field trips.
And that is approval, we're asking for approval if we would need it. So.
Thank you. So if I can get a recommendation from a board member, Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community School District, I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education approve the consent items as presented.
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Meno. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. We will move on to our action items. Tonight we have two. Our first action item is our personnel report for this evening. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin, and I will turn to Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. This evening, we have one new hire, Rachel Filka, Media Specialist at Novi Woods. We have one retirement, Julie Bedford, Principal at Deerfield Elementary School. And one leave of absence, Natalie Capatina, second grade teacher at Parkview. This is a year one personal leave of absence.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. If I can get a motion for the recommendation. Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Support. Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Roney. Any comments or questions for Dr. Kinzer?
How's it going with the replacement at Deerfield?
The position has been posted. It was posted on Monday. And I looked at the posting posting this afternoon. I think we had 14 applicants already. The posting will run through the 22nd of the month. We did some publicizing on Twitter. I fully expect to receive many, many applicants.
Is Julie going to stay in the building until someone else starts, or are we going to have an interim person?
She will be there until the 22nd of the month, and then we'll place an interim.
You know who that will be yet?
Not yet.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. Mrs. Hood?
I just wanted to say goodbye and good luck to Dr. Bedford. Wish her well. I want to say welcome to Rachel, and I wish Natalie well, too.
Any other comments? Okay, personally, I'd like to thank Julie Bedford for all she's done over at Deerfield for the last 6 years. Has it been? 7, 8? I'm just getting old, so my guess. But she will truly be missed, and we wish her only the best in her next future endeavors as she retires from the district. So.
And I'd like to thank her for her leadership as well. I have an intimate knowledge of Deerfield and what they did, and under her leadership, what teachers there did personally for my son, and the privilege of seeing what our teachers do and did under her leadership for kids in this district. So in time, we wish her well, obviously, and I know she's on to some really exciting things in her future. So.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Weber.
We are excited for Dr. Bedford. She applied twice to our district. The first time she was not hired, and so she applied a second time and was hired, and she has done wonderful work at Deerfield, and we're very appreciative of the work that she has done for our district and do wish her well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 6-0. We'll now move on to the second action item, which is MyKIP. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Reskin. The MyKIP is a pathway for districts to improve student outcomes by assessing whole child needs to develop plans and coordinate funding. MyKIP stands for the Michigan Integrated Continuous Improvement Process, and it was formerly known as the District Improvement Plan. And boards are supposed to approve district improvement plans, and so that is why this is coming before the board for approval. At the August 12th, 2021 board meeting, Dr. Weber presented the MyKIP plan to the board for information and discussion, and we asked for comments before we brought it back for approval. And so tonight we do bring this back for approval as required by law.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. If I can get a motion for the recommendation. Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the Michigan Integrated Continuous Improvement Process as presented.
Do we have support?
Support.
Recommended by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mrs. Roney.
I would turn to Dr. Weber to give us a brief overview again of the MyKIP plan and before the board votes so that the community can hear once again what our 4 goals are for the next several years.
Certainly. So if the board members, and they have access to the packet, and the community also has access to the packet, it's broken into 4 major areas. The first one being improving K-5 mathematical reasoning. And the support there will help each one of our K-5 teachers to better address the mathematical needs of our youngsters, which is great. The second goal focuses on small group instruction, in particular focusing on the 3rd and 4th grade bandwidth, where we're going there. And small group instruction, small group literacy instruction is meant to really help students at a critical juncture. For those of you who are teachers in the room or perhaps have had your own children and seen a little bit of that struggle between 2nd and 3rd or 2nd to 5th grade around issues, especially literacy, that's something that we are focusing upon. Excited as well to say that both of those goals, tremendous amount of educator input on that, administrative input as well, and of course looking at data to create those pieces. The third goal is understanding by design, and the existence proof that we have on understanding by design is really, if you think about our Atlas Rubicon work that began in the spring of 2011, amazing that that's been that long ago. We, being one of the most transparent districts in the state of Michigan, offered our entire curriculum on Atlas prior to any other district doing so, and put that out to the entire state as well as the country. And so when you think of understanding by design, really think of it as what do we want to end up with in each unit of study for our students, and how do we get there? And there's a consistent approach to that. We've done a tremendous amount of work around that in K-8, and really our focus, I should say K-5, our focus is now upon 6-12. Our high school has many, many, many courses, as parents know, as their students choose those. So that's why there's a 7-year timeline on that particular goal. And again, one that our instructional coaching office is helping to take the lead on with that. The final goal is our, let me get to that one. That's a big one there, isn't it? So addressing high impact areas of district culture. The summary of that is the Novi Community School District will infuse a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion into existing school improvement teams that are built upon a structure that engages staff, students, and families by June of 2023. Really looking at that from a communication standpoint and audience standpoint. We have educators, school board staff, community at large, parents, also communicating through school board meetings, presentations, social media, and so on. The due date on that is 6/17/2023, and that effort really is to focus upon local input and local control at the building level, as well as connecting that to the district in aligning our district and our community in those efforts. That is it, Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Weber.
Thank you, Dr. Weber.
You're welcome, Dr. Ruskin.
Does anybody on the board have any particular questions for Dr. Weber? Mr. Cook?
Yeah, when we first talked about this, we'd mentioned that universal accommodations were a big part of this. And as I read through this 3 times today, probably 4 other times throughout the week, I am having a hard time placing that in here.
Yep, that's not in there. I am responsible for writing the MyKit, and I'm not sure how the universal accommodation conversation came into goal 3. Really on the place where that could be is something called Universal Design of Learning, or UDL, which simply in a nutshell means trying to provide every student any way possible to show their learning. So if it's a student, for instance, who might want to use podcasting rather than writing extensive papers and so on, the universal accommodation piece was a separate presentation that I know Ms. Patel and I did, I want to say the first week of August, if I remember correctly. So you didn't miss anything in there, no invisible ink.
Okay, my other thing is, and I don't support this right now because our first one, we budgeted $800,000 for math recovery, which is a registered trademark even, through 2024 to teach half our teachers. But when we get all the way down to our DEI goal in here, we have $50,000 through 2023. Whether we're paying somebody else for their licensing or what, I think that's a little bit out of balance.
Yeah, I can
It makes this whole thing seem like it's just we're filling out paperwork and checking the box for the state. This is a continuous improvement plan. A lot of these things we have been doing throughout the year, engaging the families. We wouldn't have 29 national semifinalists if families weren't engaged. And so a lot of this, to me, looks like, okay, let's just put some stuff on the paper and check the box for the state that we did this plan.
I do appreciate having a public opportunity to address your comments, Trustee Cook. It's difficult when you have to do it via email or, in settings that are different. The great thing is that this is public, and you have publicly declared that this doesn't make sense on that for you, so I'm going to try to do my best to help you. So when you look at professional development and the work that we do, $800,000, and the number you see is the number of, that number also comes in the number of teachers that you'd have to pull on a daily basis to do professional development over a multi-year period. So right now, guest teachers are running,
$104.98 a day.
that's why it's great to sit next to the HR. So when you see those numbers, what you're seeing in those numbers, and a higher number that is that training requires teachers to be out of the classroom more often, therefore guest teachers. When you see the DEI number, because that is involving parents and students and building improvement teams that aren't taken out for professional development, but instead the notion of really as a community and together building what that is, that's where the disparity in numbers are. It's not explicit training that's happening in Goal 4, whereas Goal 1 is indeed explicit training, and the amount of money that goes into that training and that number has to do with, we have 2 highly trained personnel who are in-district coaches. One was a former math interventionist that maybe some kids have benefited from, and another was a math teacher in our district for years. So when you see that $800,000 number baked in there, what you have is all that professional development, people being taken out of their classrooms, the $104.98 per day for that, across our K-5 bandwidth. Whereas when you look at Goal 4, that is not about taking teachers out of the classroom for professional development. So I hope that that helps with the numbers disparity.
A little bit, but still, you know, a lot, like I say, a lot of these are things that we have been doing. And when this was first brought forward, I think I asked before the presentation was done, if we could see, based off of previous years' continuous district improvement plans, how we were doing on some of that stuff. And now they've changed the format, so I can understand why that isn't done, but I'm still, you know, I really think that this, you know, you did a great job aligning with the district goals and everything. But it's a lot of stuff that we've been doing, and we have already shown the improvement. I was hoping to see something in here that was new, and not much of it is.
So another part of the cost would be actually math recovery kits for each teacher. That would be $500 for that piece as well. And you are always welcome to kind of come in, or I'm happy to also meet with yourself and anybody, or do a presentation with our math recovery and our math specialist interventionists who provide this to help any understanding that might be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Mena?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You mentioned Atlas Rubicon early in the presentation here. So I have 2 questions. First of all, can you just explain again how that ties into this presentation?
Mm-hmm.
I have to apologize. This is probably one of the most, and I should preface that I'm not saying it's of anybody's fault, but it is kind of one of the most confusing topics that I've had to vote on as I go through this, and I actually went back to the last presentation, and I was kind of having problems mapping it to these goals. But that being said, I just want to first get an understanding of how Atlas Rubicon fits in here. And then also, while we're talking about Atlas Rubicon, I still remember when we first had the presentation on it quite a few years ago, and my understanding was that obviously that was going to help with alignment, but also it was going to help with transparency, and it was going to be available to parents, and I believe it is. How are we doing keeping that up to date as we make changes in curriculum? And if a parent comes up to me concerned about something, and I refer them to Atlas Rubicon to look up that particular topic, that particular class, can I be rest assured that they're not going to come back to me and say, hey, you know, what my kid is telling me that's happening in class and what's in Atlas Rubicon doesn't really match?
Right. So I would say the answer to the first question is that the Atlas Rubicon reference has to do with a consistent way of setting up each unit. What's your outcome? What are the resources? What are the state standards that it's tied to, and so on. So one of the beautiful things about, at the time, this was back in 2011, is when we put this out there, and again, super proud of the work that we did, but think about it as is a 1.0 to the UBD, if you will. Now what we've done is gotten better and are declaring in this plan to get better at how we align that curriculum and pull them together. So that's why the Atlas Rubicon reference was there. It was saying that it was an existence proof to what happens when we have a structure for designing curriculum and pulling it together. The quantifiables on that would be that when you look at the performance data from our elementaries, we have 5 elementaries, the spread between that performance data is about 3%. 11 years ago, that was not the case at all. The variability was far higher, which would tell me we're getting better at being consistent. To answer your second question, I would say the best thing to always do is to first go towards the teacher. Because of the churn and variability, especially as we look at COVID in the past year and a half, and our ability for our teachers to get together to update those pieces in Atlas Rubicon, it is something that this is why you see the school here, frankly, because it needs to be better. And so, no, you can't rest assured that everything is there, unfortunately. As some of us know, as parents know, there may be some subjects that aren't as built out as they could be, and there may be some subjects that are super robust, which is why I'll always say to go toward the teacher first to know what's being taught in there. So we use this as a warehouse and a frame for an Atlas. That was the reference. I would say any parent who is wondering what's being taught in the classroom, always go towards the teacher. Since the last curriculum committee meeting, I've been privileged to see some interactions between teachers and parents that were eminently healthy and provided, I think, some resolution to questions that were being asked.
If I can put, so what happens if, we're a parent who's helping kids sign and pick classes before a school year, where if Atlas Rubicon isn't always going to be the go-to place to know, where would a parent go then? They don't quite have a teacher yet.
So what helped me with the grade level or the school?
Well, let's say high school.
Okay. So our counselors in 7th, 8th grade do a wonderful job of helping parents and students have an idea of what needs to be signed up in that freshman year. That's where we have the counseling offices there to help. If they want more detail on the particular class, standards and so on, that would be able to be either found in Atlas Rubicon or could be retrieved as they're making those decisions from a counseling standpoint. So that's what I would say on that part of it.
And then the other question that I had, with regards to the due dates for these different goals, as Mr. Cook referenced, he said a lot of the stuff we've been doing for a while. So if that is true, can I assume then that really these due dates are sort of just stamps here, because we probably would hit the due date soon, right? A lot of these things, if we're doing them.
No, that would not be a safe thing to assume. If you look at goal number 1 on there in the K-5 mathematical reasoning, we've actually built that out to where in the first year we're working with our kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 5th grade. Second year we're working with our 3rd and 4th grade, and then we have the recursive cycle of new staff coming in. So this is a very much more specific goal than we've ever had around mathematics in the district. And really this whole notion is, and this is where, I mean, if you have the time, I have the people, and I have the ability to share it with you. I am happy to present bespoke presentations on things such as whether it's our AVMR and our math approach, whether it's our small group instruction, UBD, what we're doing from a standpoint of SEL. I would welcome the opportunity to get people in front of this board and the public so we can answer questions.
I think one of the things that the board can reflect back on is what we did with our science curriculum. That was a multi-year effort to unroll the next generation science standards in the district, and this is very similar, and so it will take multiple years to develop this. Some of the due dates, for example, on the UBD, that's a 7-year rollout. As we think through that, that we will reflect on that each year and identify priorities, and that may wax and wane, if you will, depending on the opportunities that we have to train our staff and to develop the content of those that UBD and UDL work in our grades 6 through 12.
Dr. Weber, I just have a quick question, just for us and the public to have a better understanding. So just because the format's a little different than what we've been used to and compared to our district improvement plan in the past. So as these due dates, fluctuate based on the particular goal, I see none of them coming up for 2022, which would be next year, and we're required to look at this on a yearly basis as a board, correct?
Correct.
So the next step in the process next year in 2022 would be to look at these goals and to have some data behind them for us to look at and see kind of where we're at in implementing the goals and how far we've come along the way. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
I mean, the pleasure of the board, but I would say, Steve, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. Throughout all of these goals, we'll be able to provide the board with updates throughout the course of the year as well. For example, we have some AVMR training already occurring in the district.
It has occurred in the past, but yep.
And we can identify for the board how many teachers have been trained and get some feedback from them to present to the board to give you a sense or a flavor of how that training is going. At the high school, middle school, the 5-6, I was talking to Mr. Bricky today, and he was talking about the UBD work that's going on at the 6th grade house. And so we can certainly, throughout the course of the year, kind of update the board, and then as we bring this back to the board next year, we'll be able to provide some insight into the impact that we've had over the course of this year and how that sets us up for the next improvement plan, because this is a yearly plan that we have to present to the state, and it gives us an opportunity as a district to reflect on what we think are the needs in the district based on test data, teacher input, administrator input as we move forward.
And part of the piece here is the reality, and I'm sure small business owners, large business owners are facing this as well. We can only have our teachers out 4 days of the year in our DPPD days because frankly we cannot find guest teachers. And the reality is that with over 400 teachers in the district and believing as a business that believes in education that we should educate our staff to help educate our kids, professional development and that ability to do that can happen 4 days of the year on those 4 DPPD days. And we minimize the amount of times our students or our teachers are out of the classroom. So thinking about the length of goals and how much time it takes, I fully understand, just as I could never know, for instance, in other industry and how long it might take to develop something, to develop new technology, to do whatever, right? There are timelines for that I can't understand. I do understand education. I'm fortunate to work with some great people, and I know that these timelines were put there with the sensitivity of how much we could actually pull teachers from the classroom and execute that. And the capacity, frankly, of, again, as educators, we know that there's so much that people can learn and implement at any one time. I have tried to put, like in high school, I tried to put a chemistry book under my pillow thinking it might work, and it didn't. So I do know that won't work. But what I do know works is staying focused on one thing through the year, really diving deep into it. And I appreciate, Dr. Matthews, you bringing up as an example our science curriculum. So from a K-12 standpoint, I can probably say that was a 7-year effort and an intentional rollout. That if board members are visiting elementary schools, as I think each of you are assigned to school, I would encourage you to ask teachers how they feel about the support and the rollout of the science program to see their feedback on that. And then put that in the back of your mind as you think about the AVMR, as you think about small group instruction, as you think about UBD and those things.
Thank you, Dr. Weber.
You're welcome.
Do any other board, Mr. Smith?
Just a couple of quick ones. I know you've got some key resources in the back of the room, Dr. Weber. I saw Shaylee Darby back there. Part of the literacy program, will that involve training specifically for teachers, let's say with kids that have dyslexia as a specific example? Because I know maybe 5 or 10 years ago there weren't many, I don't want to say there weren't any, but there weren't as many as maybe we'd like to have that have specialized skills or abilities to teach, you know, a child that has a learning disorder that they might benefit from that?
So investments that we've made are in programs like Orton Gillingham, which if anyone in the room or watching has had a student with dyslexia will know that that is a program that has high impact and works. It's also very expensive to engage in training. And also losing people who you train and then they retire or move to another district is tough. I do know, I believe Dr. Matthews, there's some legislation that is in committee.
It's pending, yeah.
Is somewhere out there, Trustee Smith, to discuss how we're going to address dyslexia.
Okay.
It is a very, if it impacts your family, you know how serious it is. So really, the approach to that is we're fortunate to have literacy specialists throughout the district. And as we look at how we can infuse what we can do to, at the very least, diagnose or see it early. But as far as the ability to attend to students with dyslexia, that's something that we're going to need to make further investment in.
Okay.
And Orton Gillingham is a program that you could look up and see.
So that's probably something, Dr. Kinzer, that's on your radar as you're looking at resumes or background or experience. Okay, if we find somebody like that, I see some other heads nodding in the back. I just, you know, it's a testament to our teachers. If you have a child that has dyslexia, sometimes it's, you know, 4th or 5th grade by the time it's really caught or diagnosed, but as soon as it is, I know that resources get poured into that student. It was actually Miss Bedford. I know the time has passed to comment on her, but that was a building assignment I had. I remember sitting with Julie in her office one afternoon, and the phone rang, and there was a student that was having an issue and was throwing things in the classroom, you know, and whatnot. And I was listening and trying to observe, and I was like, wow, you know, how many times a day does that happen? And she's like, you'd be surprised. And we started talking about that, and Julie, to her credit, was really the first teacher, administrator, you know, building principal that really got me to understand that all of our kids are our kids. And just because one particular kiddo requires this much love and attention and support and resources, and this one over here doesn't require, they're all our kids. And Julie was the first one to beat that through my head. So I know we identify these opportunities, so I just wanted to make sure resources continue to go in there. My second thing is just, it's a comment. We don't have to discuss it, it doesn't have to be solved tonight, but the first 3 improvement goals, and again, as we vote on it, some of it, I'll be gone before we get to the goals, so
What do you mean? What are you talking?
in any event, the first 3 look like they're pretty measurable. I think maybe Paul and I share this, we have a hard time with a goal that's not measurable. You know, that acronym SMART. So I don't know how you apply a measurable outcome to goal number 4, but I'd like us to give some thought to that.
I think, yeah, Dr. Weber and I and other administrators have had those conversations about the diversity, equity, and inclusion goal, and part of it is that initiating this goal will, in a sense, force us as a district to come back to the board and say, here's the goal, here's the more specific goal that comes out of these discussions. This DEI goal has kind of been a goal in the cloud, if you will.
Right,
you know,
right.
Kind of, and what this goal does is it will require us to have those discussions and then come back to the board and say, out of those discussions at the building level, we think this is the direction that we need to go as a district, and give the board the opportunity then to say, that's the direction that we would like to go.
Okay, and I'm sure that will involve community input and all that.
Yep, community,
Yeah.
teacher, student input where
I
appropriate.
just want to be on the record as we're asking for us to vote on this tonight, and it's a goal that really
Yep.
doesn't have a measurable.
Correct. Yep,
So-
it's not as measurable as the others, but
Okay.
those measures will come as we work with the board and the community to identify the direction that we want to go in that area.
Is Mrs. Erickson still teaching at Meadows?
Yes.
Yes, she is.
She was one of that really identified a learning thing and figured out what literature might work for, you know, so we've got great resources in our buildings. Thank you.
Mr. Smith. Any other comments from the board or particular questions? Okay. Hearing none, I think we are ready for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Righty, next we will move on to our second opportunity for comments from the audience. I won't reread you my litany of rules and regs, but if anybody wants to go up to the podium, please help yourself. We are here to listen and open this up to our community at our meeting. Don't forget to please fill out a green card before you leave so that Mrs. Holly has your name and address if we would like to or need to follow up with you. You can just hold on to it. Mrs. Holly will take it from you when you're completed. We also, I'm sorry, because I did not announce it in the original, we have 5-minute limitation. Mr. Mena, as our secretary, keeps track of that, and he will give you a 30-second warning so that we're not just cutting you off at the end and you can gather your thoughts and finish up.
Sounds good. All right. Good evening, board members and community. My name is Amy Krupkin. I'm here tonight to speak concerning several topics that I've witnessed over the last several board meeting and committee meetings. I've seen members of our community criticize and denigrate our teachers and administration for trying to be an inclusive, welcoming district to all. We have board members that have spoken out about our curriculum and even gone so far as to want to approve all material that is used in classroom, from books on shelves that students can choose to read or supplemental material that teachers use to help students understand information. Do you have any idea how much material you would have to look through for all of these classes that are taught in our district? You'd never be able to get anything done for this body if that's all you did. Our teachers are professionals and do not put a book on the shelf or use a material that they haven't thought through to see how it would help a student. And teachers are usually buying all of this with their own money because, let's be honest, teachers are not supplied with everything they need to do their jobs to the best of their ability. You see an enormous classroom library where students have a huge choice of material. Teachers bought all that. Why don't we actually try treating our teachers like the professionals that they are and not glorified babysitters? Our teachers all have bachelor's degrees in their field, and many have master's degrees. How many of you sitting there actually have degrees in education? My second comment would be that it is very disheartening to know that members of this board have attended meetings recently that have come out against our district, encouraged people to homeschool, and vilified our teachers, and the board members said nothing. They did not stand to defend our district and our teachers. How can you sit on our Board of Education in a meeting and say how wonderful all of our teachers are and how great our scores are, and then listen to this vitriol being spewed and say nothing? That is beyond shameful, and I believe some sort of disciplinary action should have been taken. In conclusion, I would like to relay my appreciation for our teachers and administrators. It is you who have made us one of the top districts in the state. Please keep up the great work. And for all of you that are criticizing and making negative comments, why don't you sign up to sub and help in our schools? I'm sure they could use the help with being so short-staffed. Then you would see all of the wonderful things that our teachers in schools are doing in their classrooms. You would realize that all of the baseless fear-mongering that is out there, that our schools are indoctrinating our children, is just that, baseless and used to divide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Seal. And my timing's pretty good to respond to that kind of. So the leadership of an organization is responsible for cultivating the culture. Sadly, I have seen an outrageous pattern of negative culture over the last couple of years in Novi. After last year's hybrid debacle, I learned that our administration is not open to ideas from many of the parents. When we didn't give up and just go away, it was communicated to the teachers union that parents thought their teaching methods were failing our children. All of the comments from the teachers at the next board meeting were from a position of defense against the parents, and you could hear the obvious hurt in their voices. No one ever said it was the teacher's fault. This year, it has become obvious to many of us that our district has implemented questionable curriculum, invasive questions about our children's gender preferences, and allowed content in our schools that is inappropriate. Look up the book Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison. It is in our high school media library or media center. When these concerns are shared, there has been little to no action taken by our administration. Once again, the teachers union was informed that the parents are upset with what they are teaching our children. The following curriculum meeting was filled with teachers who were in a position of defense against the parents. And again, no one said it was their fault. Last week, there was an event where a retired Novi Meadows teacher spoke about her experience at Novi schools. The things she exposed are concerning to many parents. Several school staff attended this meeting. One principal wrote a blog post about the event that over-dramatized, exaggerated, and victimized the teachers of Novi. This blog post created a space for some community members to villainize board members. His blog post is titled, "No Place for Hate," and I agree, there isn't. The parents, community members, board, and staff members were all there to simply seek to understand. So why stir up hate? Let me be clear. This is not a fight between parents and teachers. Teachers, if you're here, if you're watching, you are not hated. You are not the problem. And most of us moved to Novi so our children could be educated by you. So we thank you. The ideology of this administration is clear, and it is leading our district. When that agenda became obvious, the assistant superintendent of academics stirred up the once cohesive parent-teacher environment we used to have in Novi. Teachers and parents, do not fall for this, please. Parents have the right to express real concerns that must be handled with transparency, open dialogue, and action. Per the Michigan Department of Education School Code Parental Rights section, which I've shared with you, it refers to Michigan law. The numbers are on there. I won't read them. It establishes the role of the parent as a partner in the child's education. It goes on to say that public schools serve the needs of the students by cooperating with the students' parents. That parents have the right to review all curriculum, all textbooks, and all teaching materials. And the role of the board is to ensure that the parents' rights are met. It's very clear on that document. Our board is lacking oversight because our administration is lacking procedural protocol and transparency. Our school district's culture has become toxic, and our children are the victims. This is the second time I am formally and publicly asking for a diverse parent oversight committee to be formed to review the curriculum and teaching materials used in our district, per our right. Lastly, I am begging this administration to stop pitting parents and teachers against each other. There's nothing to be gained there, and there is everything to lose.
My name is Sam Matthew. I live in Novi for the last 30 years. I had my older son go through high school just recently. In 2016, when we had the election, there was a guest teacher in our school in a history class. Bad-mouthing Trump and glorifying Hillary. And this happened for like the whole semester, and my son complained. And I emailed the principal, and I was brought into the school to discuss the issue. And I think at some point he slowed down his political campaign. So somebody had said, school is becoming a place for these liberal ideologies to be promoted, and I don't appreciate it. And with all this CRT thing coming to light, this is not the place. You don't use schools to promote hate among kids, okay? I do not understand the Democrats, what is the word I'm looking for? For example, like you got all these illegals coming in, like for Dreamers, right? Dreamers are coming in and you want to give them free citizenship or pathway to citizenship. And the reason you're doing that is because kids didn't do anything wrong. They came with the parents, And I agree with that. Likewise, the white kids who are going to school now, they didn't do anything wrong. Their great-grandparents maybe did something wrong. Why are you punishing them and pinning them against each other? I don't think it's right.
Thank you.
My name is Heidi Burns. I'm a mother of 4 daughters and a resident of Novi for over 18 years. I am here tonight as a proponent for unity in our community. Where is the civility? When did it become acceptable for grown-ups to behave poorly? To secretly meet, to name call, to speak on truths, secret recordings, to use a conspiratorial term such as CRT and talking points of bias in the classroom as weapons to undermine our educators? It's embarrassing. This is a district of inclusion, of acceptance, of love and support to all children. If a parent or a student has concern, then proper measures and steps should be taken through the teacher, principal, superintendent, and school board accordingly, as we discussed at the last meeting. And I'm glad to hear this is happening. That has always been the way things have been handled and the way things should be. This is the established protocol. Public education is a hallmark of America. It is unique to this country and should not be politicized. Public education benefits all of society and shouldn't be disparaged or taken for granted. Our public Novi district has over 6,500 students. Let's not allow a small group of frightened parents divide us. We are a community trying to raise our children, trying to raise them to be kind, inclusive, empathetic, and aware. It is on all of us to lead by example the best way we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burns.
Hi, my name is Sharon Bedoyne. I attended the meeting last week that was the topic of a circulating blog. I went because I was interested to hear what this retired school teacher had to say about her experience teaching in the district that I have had kids in since 2004. I've always been a big proponent of Novi schools, and my 3 kids have received an excellent education thanks to the district teachers, principals, and administration. As I looked around the room at the meeting, it did seem like many people, especially some of the more outspoken ones, may have been a bit older and did not really appear to be of the age to have kids in the district. Maybe I'm wrong. I listened to Mrs. Rugg's story. After she spoke, she opened it up for questions, which would have been a great time for the staff members that were in attendance. I'm not referring to the school board members, I'm referring to the actual Novi Community School District employees that were there. That would have been a great time for them to challenge any statements or claims that she had made that were untrue or misleading so that the community members could hear what they had to say, but this did not happen. As a parent, if this retired teacher was distorting the truth, I would have liked to have heard it called out right there for the community members to hear, but they did not. To me, the sentiment in the room was not against teachers and principals. It was more against content delivered through staff development and administrative trends, which is a conversation being had throughout the country. To call this a hate-filled event is very misleading, and I did not see it that way at all. As involved parents, we have an interest in hearing various experiences in the public schools, and closing our ears to any speaker is not in anyone's best interest. It's best to hear many perspectives on any issue. Since that event, I've heard that some groups are upset that 2 board members were in attendance. I'm not sure why board members are being condemned for being at this event when employees were there also. Are people upset that they said nothing at the meeting when the Novi staff members sat quietly also and had the opportunity to bring up any concerns they had right in front of the attendees? A challenge from a staff member would have actually been more powerful than from a school board member to what this retired teacher was saying if there were things that were misrepresented. What is wrong with the school board members wanting to hear what this retired teacher is saying to community members and their constituents and seeing the public reaction to the presentation? I feel that it is the responsibility of the board members to know what is being said, and attending does not indicate their support for what the message was. They just should have been there to hear what the message was and to see how it was delivered and how the public was reacting. So I think that vilifying them for being at this meeting is just not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna +1 that. That was great, by the way. Dave Madej, live at 50876 Chesapeake. Have 2 children, one that graduated from Novi, one that hopefully will graduate from Novi. And I love the Novi School District. I'm gonna start with that. And I want to thank the board. I want to thank you guys for serving. And to be honest, I bet none of you envision what you're going to see the last 2 years or a year and a half. You know, it's not just the COVID and the mask, it's the politics, it's a curriculum debate. Unfortunately, you guys have a bigger problem. We have a political and social divide that's happening in the community, what is impacting the school district. And, you know, you get a lot of people that come up and grandstand and say all kinds of things, and, you know, it's a lot of rhetoric, and I feel for you guys because there's a lot to do. I'm 100% supportive of the +1 as well as what Lisa Seal had said. And I thank Lisa for coming here and having the courage to do 2 things. One, to cut through the noise, to articulate a position and do so responsibly and respectfully, right? Without calling out the other side, about talking about what bothered her and represent it in a way that hopefully appeals to you guys. Because that's who she's appealing to. She's asking you. Now, I don't know that I want to say much more on what happened. I was here a couple months ago. I continue to be concerned with the persecution and the intimidation that's going on in our community. And I think at times it's propagated by the Novi Community School District, their employees and their administrators. We talked about the political event that just happened, that the person attended on their own volition, as well as all the employees that attended on their own volition, not as a requirement to the school. What bothers me on this is you're completely within your right, and you should disagree. If you don't like what the person said, disagree. It's great. I wasn't even there. That's not what I'm complaining about. What I'm complaining about is you can't use your opinions as a person and start doing a social divide and use the Novi Community School District platform to launch it. And that's what happened, okay? And I would also say that not only did that happen with a blog or whatever the hell that's called, but it was applauded by school administrators and further employees. And one employee said, and I'm shocked at this, but it said, who was in attendance and why is just as important as who was delivering the message that intended to cause harm to public schools, kids, and staff. That's persecution. That's intimidation. As a matter of fact, that's a definition of a thinly veiled threat. That's what it is. You can look it up. I discussed concerns with the school administrators. It's up to them and the board to solve this. What I would say is each of you serve the community at large, which includes dissenting views. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. You have an obligation to listen to all views and represent all parents. That's your obligation. There's a difference, though, between hearing and listening and reacting. And that's what people are getting upset about. At my company, we live by some core values. One of these values is no jerks. It's one of our values. It means we debate and solve hard technical problems. We don't waste time battling over personalities and egos. We have no tolerance from time wasters and nonsense. Our company is filled with really smart people, just like at the Novi Community School District. Filled with people who have differing views on to solve some of the most technically challenging problems we have in the transportation industry and you have as school administrators. Never once was someone's social or ideological belief a consideration in the legitimacy of their point of view. Never once. It never influences the mission that we are trying to solve. It should never influence the mission you're trying to solve. Nobody has ever.
You have 30 seconds.
Nobody is ever persecuted for having an opposing point of view. It seems to me that the board and administration should operate the same way. That requires you to stay out of the political divide and focus on the job of maintaining Novi Community School District as one of the best districts in the state and probably the country. Ask yourselves, are you truly listening? Thank you.
Any further comments?
You get a little flat.
I'm not going to do it after some great statements, but I feel like I need to. I'm Marita Mena. I'm a Novi resident. I don't think I need to read all of it, but I've come here tonight to express my disappointment and anger about the blog posted by an administrator in our district. I've always held that administrator in high regards for his exceptional empathy and support of all our students and parents in Novi. After reading his blog, his reputation and character have been greatly harmed in the eyes of many Novi residents. It will be hard for me personally to see him in the same high regard with which I previously held. His writings only serve to divide this community instead of uniting it. I attended the meeting of which he wrote about, and some of the other people here were there. His perception of that meeting was completely different from mine. It could be because the administrators that attended knew that they were not attending with good intentions. They were attending a meeting of a political party that they not only were not affiliated with, I'm assuming, and I know there's facts for some of the people there, but they're a political party that they are diametrically opposed to in their beliefs. It should have been obvious to them that it was wrong to attend this function, unless there was an express purpose that they communicated to the person in charge of the meeting. That would have been the courteous thing to do. The Republican Club allowed them entry, did not even point out to the crowd that their table was a table of Democrat administrators. In fact, I would guess that 75% of the attendees did not even know who they were. As somebody stated earlier, there were a lot of older people there who do not probably have kids in the district. They may not have even been from Novi. There was a small group in the back who did know who they were, but did not tell anybody, did not say anything. The few that did know were mostly sitting in the back of the room and did not have any contact with them other than maybe a hello. There was never any reason for anyone to be in fear of their safety. I actually made a comment to someone at the end of the night and asked if the administrators had left yet. There was no big hate-filled uproar, as he stated. Someone who I don't know, the older gentleman, who spoke, I would say poorly, with frustration about what is happening to our schools. There were some claps to his discussion about what he said, maybe a few that agreed with his poorly stated feelings, which again I didn't believe, but most in attendance, especially the ones by me, who actually knew who the administrators were, didn't even clap for him. I found his language, the older man, appalling. I don't like that kind of language there, okay? I was confused that after the speaker concluded, there was a question and answer session and the administrators didn't pose any questions or refute her statements. Why were they there then? It is very apparent now, after reading the blog post and hearing about various other Twitter posts, and I am not on Twitter, so I just
get it from other people, that it was to intimidate the speaker and to spew hate toward people who support Republican and conservative views. I hear a lot now that we need to recognize our biases when speaking to each other. Obviously, the administrators went in with the bias of what they believed would happen. They did not add to any civil discourse, and they went with bad intentions. If he was scared, it was because of what he had perceived about Republicans, not because of anything that happened at the meeting. At political meetings, sometimes people say inappropriate things, both Democrat and Republican. I venture to say that if any of some of the more prominent Republicans in the city tried to attend a Democrat meeting, they wouldn't even let them in. We at least let them in and we're polite. This was just an inappropriate thing to do. In conclusion, I ask that all the administrators that attended this meeting publicly apologize for bringing inappropriate, negative attention to our district. Any statements or blogs should be removed from social media, and those responsible for writing them should publicly apologize. Only then can we begin to heal the division that this has caused in our district. Novi, we are better than this.
Thank you, Mrs. Menoff. Do we have any further comments or anyone who wants to go to the podium?
Hello, good
Hi there.
evening, DeJuan Woods. I have a 6-year-old in Deerfield. I actually want to talk about more reflection. First, I want to thank Dr. Bedford for all of her service at Deerfield, and having a 6-year-old, I am very grateful for her professionalism and dedication, and I just hope that we have a principal that serves after her with the same passion, commitment to young children. I'm actually here to say, I'm speaking for myself. I love this district. In fact, I'm so proud to be here and have the fortune of being in a district that I know my son is going to get the best education. I know that you all care about your children. I care about my son. And I'll say this, as a parent, it's also up to me to play a role in making sure this community is successful. So I'll use an example. Dr. Matthews and Dr. Weber came to my university. I introduced them to the Dean of Education. Dr. Matthews is a proud alum of that university, and we're going to be working on some programs to bring mathematics education, exposure to STEM, artificial intelligence, science, math. My background is in mathematics and history, actually, so I'm worried about and concerned about the jobs. I'm concerned about our kids not being prepared for the jobs of the future, automation, electrification. These jobs, I don't know if most people are aware of this, but most of the jobs in China and India and other locations are being outsourced because the education systems in those locations, they focus on making sure mathematics skills are high. So computer science, algorithms, AI, that's where the jobs are going because that's where the talent is. If we don't compete, if we don't prepare our children, all of these conversations are going to be moot. We're going to be out to lunch, gone, finished. So I hate to be so drastic about this, but I'm concerned. And it's not just me, but if you look at the reports of where the jobs are, the trends, Forbes, Fortune, MIT, Stanford, technology reviews that are peer-reviewed science reviews, no bias, no politics, this is facts. That's what I'm most concerned about. So the question I have for those folks is, if you work at a technology company, if you work at a car company, if you work in science, what are ways that you can bring researchers, expertise, folks that can expose our kids to this so they're prepared and they're ready? That's what I'm concerned about. And I just like to state that because I believe that we as a district, when it comes down to one thing, we really want to do the best, and we're trying to do the best, and we're struggling. And so I love the idea that we all have disagreements. And by the way, this is why we're in America, right? So we can view our disagreements in a safe space. No one's worried about getting, hanged, killed, murdered, whatever. And so I'm just grateful that this is such a spirited debate. But I again bring it back to this question of how can we prepare our kids so that they're contributors to the society. In 30 years, 50 years, 60 years from now, I can come back as an old man, or not older man, and say, I'm proud of what we did now. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Good evening, Board. Jason Minster, resident Novi, Berkshire Point subdivision. First, I'd like to start off by echoing what was just said. We are sorely going to miss Julie Bedford at Deerfield Elementary. I feel like she was the rare and beautiful combination of firmness with a ton of love and empathy behind it. And the way that she's led that school for the 4-some years that my son's had the privilege to go there has just been fantastic to watch. And every single one of my interactions with her I've always walked away feeling I am so glad that she is leading the school and that my son is in her care, because I really feel like she really does care for every single one of the kids that she has in that school, all 450 some of them, which is amazing. And I feel like she's able to treat them all as individuals and figure out how to give them all what they need. And it's absolutely amazing. And I really do hope that we can fill those very big shoes that she's going to leave us with. So on tonight, the reason why I wanted to come up and address the board is I do feel like you are hearing that this community is in a crux, and we've had these conversations before. I think some of it is akin to, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and so it seems like in elementary school you always learn about your state. So I don't have that much Michigan knowledge, and I was informed just this week of the state bird. My son also informed me that Lake Superior looks like a charging bull from outer space. And Lake Huron and Lake Michigan look like the mustache of an evil guy from the old gray black and white movies. These are fascinating facts that I never considered. Because I didn't grow up here. It wasn't something that I experienced. It wasn't that exposure that I had. And it wasn't my fault that I didn't know it necessarily. And it's cool that I learned it. And now hopefully I can pass it on. I think diversity, equity, inclusion, race, and culture are very similar. I think something I learned, and I do want to state that illegals is not a good term. I did not endorse it. I feel like it's a microaggression, maybe even macro. I feel like you can refer to people for who they are, and I feel like that kind of thing is a thing that you learn through exposure and experience. The very first big culture shock I had was in college, unfortunately. Where a close friend of mine said, just consider it from my perspective, when you go, you cut yourself, what do you buy? I said, I buy a Band-Aid. They're like, that's right. And how do you choose your Band-Aid? I was like, I just choose whatever's on the shelf. And they're like, and you're fine? I was like, yeah, put it on. And you're like, you don't have a problem wearing it? I was like, no. And they're like, well, when I buy a Band-Aid and I put it on, it doesn't look like my skin. And everybody sees my Band-Aid. Does anybody ever point out if you're wearing a Band-Aid? I was like, no. They're like, have you ever read a box of Band-Aids, what color it says? I was like, yes, sometimes it says like flesh tone or skin. I was like, oh. I missed that. It wasn't part of my growing up. And I think you guys are seeing and hearing some of that. And I think, as evidence again tonight by our 29 semifinalists, obviously the curriculum is of very high caliber. And also as an engineer, I'm from the philosophy, it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's a lot of times where we'll go in there and try to tweak something and we break it, and then we have to scramble and figure out how to refix the fix. So I think where you're going is in the right direction. And I think individually working with a teacher and going through the prescribed steps is the way that I will treat it, because I'm sure I will find eventually something in the curriculum that is outdated or maybe needs to be addressed, or is from a very European-centric viewpoint that isn't necessarily true. Probably a lot of American history has that buried in there. And I'll address it with my teacher at that time. And I think that is the way that I appreciate the school board keeping the how you have chosen to conduct business. And I think it all ties in beautifully to what was presented tonight, the fourth point, the DEI point. I think it's the missing part of what Novi education needs, because it involves us, the parents. And we've all grown up differently and had different exposures. lucky enough to have some really cool
Mr. Commissioner,
exposures.
I always hate to interrupt, but I just want to let you know there's 30 seconds.
Thank you. And, for example, as a Princeton alum, I've had the pleasure to interview a lot of Novi students, and they seem very well-rounded, and they have a great education. I'm always impressed when I get to sit down and interview them for the applicants coming into Princeton. And I think what you guys are doing is great, and I think the DEI part is the missing part, where us, the parents, can sit down and get educated. And I look forward to talking to all the community members there, and I hope everybody in attendance is at those meetings so we can share experiences and ideas and hopefully, have those aha moments and less back and forth and less conflict and more coming together. Thank you.
No, go ahead.
Probably when you sit up. Good evening, Betsy Bedoyne. I've got 3 kids in the district, 3 different schools. I'm here to speak on behalf of a lot of parents in our community that are extremely grateful for our teachers and our administrators and the work that they have done to include all the kids, no matter what their current situation or family life or mental health situations or disabilities or skin color, any of that. I personally have great relationships with the administrators that have been in my kids' buildings and have been just overwhelmed with the amount of care and effort that they put into teacher placements and getting to know the kids, and making everyone feel welcome, especially coming back from virtual school. I feel like everybody has gone above and beyond this year. The topic at hand, we all know what's kind of going on, but given all of the information that the trustees of the school board have had on the behavior of Mrs. Rugg, both during and after her employment with this district, I am not shocked that some members of the board would want to witness her presentation firsthand. It's a great way to know what she's been up to since she left the district. However, it's appalling to me that anyone would attend that presentation where she speaks so poorly about our district and teachers and students and not feel compelled to speak up on behalf of those people. Novi has benefited greatly as a city from the reputation that our school district has earned through their excellence. That is largely due to our administrators and our staff. Having personally suffered through Mrs. Rugg's presentation earlier this summer, I am heartbroken by the amount of hate and anger that she holds for our students, district, and superintendent. She said about a transgender student that my principal told me about this, and I told them not to put this person in my classroom, then laughed and said that it worked, and she was not forced to teach the transgender child. I would venture a guess that that was done out of respect for the child. I was at the meeting in Charlotte. I personally videotaped it, and that is what she said when I was there. She also said that a child, at the one I attended, she said that if a child has gender identity issues, they should be removed from their home for child abuse. She said that they are trying to take over the country by brainwashing children instead of using weapons. This presentation spoke negatively about our students, administrators, and her fellow teachers. The amount of bigotry and hatred that was shared was sickening to me. She closed by encouraging people to take their children out of public school and homeschool them instead. How many of the people in this room moved to Novi for our schools? I know I did. I grew up here and I moved back here for schools. The home prices in our city have continued to rise as a direct response to our school's success. Our city is somewhere where people move here for the schools. So to have school board members supporting an event where people are bashing our teachers and our district and encouraging homeschooling is very troubling to me. And Mr. Mena, I do see this that you're doing, and I would say that when you attend an event and have not spoken afterwards to say that you do not agree, that illustrates
Betsy,
support.
excuse me, please don't speak directly to a board member.
I'm sorry, he's making facial gestures at me.
That's okay, we're adults, we can ignore
Okay,
him.
Okay, thank you. Attending the event with no pushback from the people who attended negatively impacts our district. While I can understand it may be difficult to speak up in that moment, the elected officials in the room, I still have acknowledged, the other people in the room have acknowledged the disparaging remarks that were made about our district. I have heard each one of you board members at various points speak about our students and our teachers with pride. We put signs out last year for our teachers, and we called them superheroes at Village Oaks.
Ms. Bedoyne, you have 30 seconds.
I do not know how we have fallen so far in 1 year. And I would wonder if members of this school board really agree that people should remove their children from our district, which will directly impact our funding for our district because of political reasons. I would assume we do not, but I would love to hear from all of you, as I ask every time I attend. Thank you.
Hi, Chris Holman. I'll fill out a card.
Thank you.
So, actually, I want to thank Mr. Mitchner for his story in college. I think it actually might offer a solution a bit on how to bring our community together. I don't know if, does anybody remember what Band-Aid's solution was to that problem? They made clear Band-Aids.
They made darker.
And darker ones, right? But they also made clear Band-Aids, right? Transparency. This school board needs to demand that we have a culture of transparency with this administration. For example, the Atlas Rubicon, by what we heard tonight, it's at least several years out of date. I'm sure that Atlas Rubicon is what counselors are using to counsel 8th graders when they're going into high school, or high schoolers when they're deciding on their classes. So that should be updated. I don't think it should be incumbent upon parents to first recognize that there's a problem with the curriculum before they address it with the teachers. I think that could be addressed at the beginning of the school year. I don't see why, for instance, ELA teachers, because that seems to be where there seems to be a lot of issues with what books and such are covered in class. Like, why can't ELA teachers at the beginning of the semester send out a note to the parents? Here's going to be the required material. Here are the 10 or 15 optional books, right? I mean, I have no issues really with, you know, like some of the books that other parents have issues with around LGBT issues, whatever. Like, I think every library, every school district, like, there should be something that makes you uncomfortable. Like, that's how you learn. If you're in a classroom where you're always comfortable, obviously not creating an unsafe environment, you know, I don't think you learn when you're always in a safe arena. Like, you need to have a little bit of discomfort, and I don't think that that should be shunned. So I would just encourage that our school board ask the administration to push transparency with our teachers, push transparency with, for instance, parent access to what goes on in teacher workshops. Like, I have no idea what goes on in teacher workshops. I think that they're generally unavailable to parents, but I think that, you know, pushing that transparency would help tamp down a lot of these issues before they, you know, they fester. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holman.
She's just retrieving her mask.
Hi, my name is Sharon Trumpy. I'm here tonight on behalf of Novi Northville Racial Awareness, Accountability, and Action. And through the board and the administrators, I want to share a petition that last time I checked before the meeting had over 300 signatures. And it reads as follows. We, the undersigned, express our gratitude to our Novi Community School District teachers and administrators. We join you in saying that there is no place for hate in Novi. We see the work you do every day to educate, support, and inspire our students and families. We applaud your commitment to ensuring that students of all races, religions, abilities, gender identities, and sexual orientations are treated with dignity and respect. We believe that you too should be treated with dignity and respect by your community. NCSD's reputation for excellence has been built by you, our educators and administrators, through tireless work over many years. You have adapted to challenge after challenge and found ways to meet the unique needs of each student. We object to the hate-filled rhetoric and demonization of public school educators shared recently in our community. We stand with you and against hate in Novi. And now, from just me, I'd like to share that I'm pleased to say that I agree with so many things that were said in this room tonight. I too think that transparency is so important in our schools, and I too think that teachers and parents should be partners. And I'm really glad to say that I have 2 children in Novi school districts. I think that my experience might be a little unique in that one of my children is Black and one of my children is white. And I'm thrilled to say that learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion has benefited both of them. My white child doesn't feel shame about who he is. He has learned to be a true advocate and ally when he sees others in need. My Black child feels no shame about who he is. And when we have faced situations with any of our children's teachers, I think there's a lot of people here who know that if I have a concern or a question for my children's teachers, I go to their teachers. And I do so respectfully. And I think there's a few people, I have had conversations with Dr. Matthews, I have had conversations with Dr. Kinzer, I've had conversations with Dr. Weber, where I have expressed concerns to them, I have expressed dissatisfaction to them, and I'm so grateful to them that they have always met those concerns by listening to me and caring about my children and apologizing when they needed to. I've had those conversations with Tom Smith too, so I think all of you know that that when I have a concern, I do view you as partners, and I come to you with vulnerability, and I appreciate all the times that each of you have met that with compassion to advocate for both my children. So to any teacher or administrator who is listening, I just want to say from my heart how grateful I am for each and every one of you. And I invite anyone else who wants to express their appreciation to our teachers to feel free to add your name to our petition. It's change.org/no place for hate in NCSD. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Trumpy.
Back at the podium again. I am Tia Marie Sanders. I have been here for I don't even know how many years now, doing all kinds of programs, being on different boards. Every single person at this table has either impacted my own child's life or impacted mine, literally, in one way or another. And right now, our teachers have done the most phenomenal job that I don't even understand why we would ever call what they're doing into question, because we know why we came to this district. Are there things that we don't like? Absolutely. Are there things that still need improvement? Lord knows I know that there does need to be a lot of things improved. But what I have never been unsure about is where our teachers would like to see us go. And if they reach out, that some of you at this table have reached out to figure out how to still do that work. Not everybody will put in the work, but they have a lot to say. I believe that this city, this community, and that our children have the best opportunity they could possibly have. What I am not confident about is our ability to be examples of what that means. It is unfortunate what is happening, but I saw this 17, 16 years ago. When you do not address hate, when you don't deal with the vitriol, negativity that someone is telling you is brewing in the community, is brewing in the school, is brewing in the workplaces. This is what you get. It's unfortunate, it's sad, it breaks my heart. I hope that the people that are supposed to advocate do. I hope that the people who are supposed to protect do. I hope the people who understand that our kids are watching really cherish that that is the position that they're in. I don't acknowledge dumb, ridiculous comments that have nothing to do with what's actually happening in our schools. I know what is happening because I talk directly to the teachers. I know what you all are doing because I see you actually in the schools. This work has to continue because every day that it doesn't, and I hate to keep telling you all this last year's nearly killed me. Nearly killed me. I don't have the energy. I don't have the fortitude. I'm tired. These students should not have to worry about walking through these halls and not seeing any change. Because what it starts to look like is that you are the Novi that unfortunately wants to remain stuck in the dark ages. My good friend, Mr. Woods, talked about going in the future. This is not what the future looks like. And what's gonna happen is that you're gonna push people into a corner. You're gonna push our teachers out. One district right now, I think in Texas, they don't even have a teacher. They're looking for subs. They're talking about board members being the subs. It's ridiculous. Our teachers are amazing. Our school is amazing. Our board is soaring and pushing towards amazing. Let's keep going. Let's keep going and leave the dumb stuff behind. Because if you want to act like you want to be on the streets, hit me up.
Thank you, Tia Marie. Any further comments? Okay. Seeing none, and thank you all for your passion and your comments and your transparency and just your ability to come and articulate your feelings so that we can move forward as a community. So I do appreciate you all being here. And we are going to move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. Today, I was in a sixth grade classroom taught by Steve Ernster over at Novi Meadows. What they were talking about, Mr. Woods, you might be interested in, was coding. Each student had a mini robot in that classroom, and they were talking about how they were going to use coding to help that robot move and use coding to work on their remote control. Later on today, I spoke with an administrator about her first grade teacher who was working with a collaborative group of first grade teachers to improve her craft. And she was focused on celebrating that her teacher was so deeply invested in trying to get better. We need to continue to share those stories with our community. And the perception that we're trying to hide our intentions has caused me to reflect on how we can get better as a district. Our intent is to find ways to do that and to work collaboratively with the Board of Education, our parent community, our teachers, and our staff to help us continue to improve our district. My responsibility, as I see it, or at least part of my responsibility here in the district, is to promote the good that happens in public education. And that includes the good that happens in the Novi Community School District. Over the past week, there has been a lot of community conversation within and about our district. From my perspective, here is what our district stands for. It is written in our vision statement, a statement whose intent is to cast before us, before all of us, a vision of what we can become. The statement reads that our vision is students who are passionate empowered, and prepared for their world and their future. At the high school, new offices are being built, both on the east and the west side of the atrium. Outside of those offices will be concrete benches, and on these benches will be etched into the concrete the words passionate, empowered, and prepared. What our district has said through a planning process that included community members, parents, students, and staff is that our vision is students who develop the passion to be successful, the passion to care for others, the passion to care for our world. That we develop students who are empowered, who believe that they have the ability to make a difference in the world that they live in now and the world that they are inheriting. And the way that they will feel empowered is if we prepare them with the skills that they need to move forward. Tonight we saw a representative sample of our students who are passionate, empowered, and prepared. Those 29 National Merit semifinalists are also the student body president, also officers in HOSA, officers in DECA. They play in the marching band. They participate in our theater program. They sing in the choir, they play in the orchestra. Those are the students that our district builds. And it builds them because we have parents who care deeply. We have staff who have the skills needed to work with those students. And we have administrators who provide the leadership necessary. But as we move forward, we need to continue to remember that our responsibility is to talk with and work with each other. And as we do so, we will continue to pay attention to the emotional health of our students. We will continue to analyze if certain groups of students are overrepresented in discipline referrals. We will provide time and space for students if they become angry or upset. We will continue to bring in others to help us understand the world from different perspectives, and those people will help make us uncomfortable at times. We have done good work here in the Novi Community School District. I am in my 11th year in this district. Our test scores are strong, our extracurricular programs are strong, our commitment to all students is strong. I was walking through the high school the other day, and a student with the biggest afro I have ever seen walked out of one of the classrooms, and he looked at me and said, "Dude," and I said, "That's Dr. Dude to you." And he smiled, and we had an interesting conversation as we walked down the hall, and I asked him what he was doing, and he was able to explain to me in great detail and with passion what he was doing in the class that he had exited. All of our students are important. Whether they believe what I believe, whether they look like I look, whether they love the people I love, they are important. And our responsibility is to find ways to meet the needs of every one of those students. And we need to get better at what we do. And we will. We have. And we will continue to do that. Are we perfect? We are not. Do we make mistakes? We do. But we support the students and families in our district because I believe we have a strong desire to ensure that all feel welcome, all believe they are important, and all of them develop the skills and knowledge and attitudes that they need to be successful in the world. We want our students to feel passionate, empowered, and prepared for their world and their future. And so together we will continue to work with each other. We will continue to listen to one another. We will continue to disagree at times, but we will find our way through. We have done that for the 11 years I have been in this district. And I anticipate that we will be able to continue to do that for many more years together. There are times when we will be very angry with one another. But I have great confidence that we know deep down inside our hearts that we can find our way. And that's what we stand for. And I'm proud of the work that we have done and will continue to do for the students and families in our district. And on an unrelated note, our Novi High School Marching Band Fanfare is this weekend. It starts on Saturday about 4:30 with 14 bands coming to Novi High School. The Novi High School Band will perform shortly after 8 o'clock on Saturday, and admission, I believe, is $8, and it goes to benefit the Novi Band boosters and all of the support that they provide the students in our schools. We held our first coffee with the superintendent on Wednesday, and Ms. Roney was there to help guide me through some of the discussion that we had. We had an interesting discussion about a whole variety of topics, and it caused us to think through and think about how we can get more information on some of the things that are important to the parents who are there. And we'll hold our next coffee in November, the first Wednesday in November, and I would invite parents to come and participate. And that is my report, Dr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. We will move on to our administrative reports, and we will start with Mr. McIntyre.
To Mrs. Hood, you forwarded a transportation issue to me, and I just wanted to give you an update. We have identified the problem, working with the issue, and we've communicated with the parent on that. And the second thing, real quickly, the environment clean update. Last time I told you guys there was a credit coming back to us. That credit is now $22,900. We have a potential 4 new hires. They pass the drug screen. They'll be coming in to help alleviate some of the shortages in that unit. And we will be using the staff from transportation to help fill in some of the gaps as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Dr. Kinzer?
Thank you, Dr. Russin. First, I want to join many of you who've spoken before in recognizing Dr. Julie Bedford on her retirement. It's been a pleasure for me for the last 4 years to work closely with Dr. Bedford, and to wish her the best as she moves on. Thank her for her contribution to the district. Today, Dr. Matthews, Dr. Weber, Mr. McIntyre, Mr. Sipple, and I visited Novi Woods, Novi Meadows, Parkview, and the maintenance building to recognize employees for years of service. This is something we normally do at the beginning of the school year, and we're not able to do once again this year. But it was terrific to be able to present veteran teachers in our district with recognition. I think the most enjoyable visit was to Mr. Kendrick's classroom at Novi Woods. Brought back many of my elementary principal memories of going into a kindergarten classroom, getting those students all wound up, and then leaving. But Mr. Kendrick is a fantastic teacher, and I'm sure it took no more than 10 minutes to get them back in order. So we will be traveling to additional buildings in the district next week to recognize teachers in those, and not just teachers, but employees in the district for years of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. Dr. Weber?
Thank you. So one of the amazing pieces of our community, quite frankly, is the brand that is the Novi Community School District that's been built over the course of 50 years from people before us, from board members before us, teachers, families, and parents. And that brand is something that is precious in so many ways. A brand that is known, fortunately, throughout the state and in the country. When we see our students where they go to school and the opportunities that they have, people have worked very hard to build that brand. As such, I think it's important that we continue to be advocates and allies for those people who contribute to that brand and to make sure the brand of the Novi Community School District stays where it is. And I do believe that's an obligation that we have. So part of my piece on that today is to do a little storytelling. And this is the story I'm going to tell you. So, yesterday, I had the good fortune to go to the Rohr Center, which to the Board of Education And to the gentleman to my right and to Dr. Matthews, I want to say your vision on that a year ago when you first said, we're thinking about purchasing Welsh College, I was like, come on, really? And as we went through that process, I want to share what I saw yesterday, because it's something very few people can see. And hopefully some folks will appreciate the transparency. So the piece is, this was a shining example yesterday of what public schools can be in communities and the students that they serve. Our Novi Adult Transition Center. I believe we're the only state in the country that serves youngsters until they're 26 years of age, students with deep needs. We have 14 students at our Novi Adult Transition Center that is housed at the Rohr Center in a beautiful space. Beautiful space. I'm talking an apartment that's set up to teach life skills to these youngsters. These are students who get picked up from a Novi bus and get taken to job settings to learn what it's like to be and to live in this world. I see the teachers that teach them and see the youngsters that are there, and it's amazing. Novi Virtual is housed there. In my wildest dreams, I could have never thought that 375 kids would be counted on count day. 375 in a virtual school that is doing things under the leadership of Principal Polonsky and our virtual teachers, delivering art supplies, science supplies, having parents and kids meet up at the Rohr Center, meet up at Stewart's Ice Cream, to build connection and community, because those 375 students needed something different, and we're providing that. Our adult ESL, our adult English language learners, so for those in the community who don't know what that is, we have over 50 languages spoken in the homes of our district. Novi is a place that attracts diverse populations. Families that move here and utilize our schools to learn English so they can function and thrive in our community and around us. The final bit of the story is harder for me, and I'll tell you why. And that's career prep. We have 46 students there that have lived on the margins where school doesn't work for them. Traditional school doesn't work, hasn't worked. We have seen in the 12 years that I've been in this district, and prior to this, districts around us shutting down their adult and alternative education programs one after the other. You didn't. We had 18 students in there a number of years ago. Now we have 46. So yesterday I walked into a room, and there was a circle of students in that room. And I could tell and feel something was going on in that room. There was an energy to it. In the program, the students were all circled up, and they were having a conversation about what it's like just to make it through today. These were students who were struggling. These were students whose doors had been shut in their face time and time again. These were students at the Novi Community School District, a public community school district, with a heck of a brand that deserves to be defended from things that may not be true at all, because that brand is what has enabled us to do things like purchase the Rohr Center and be there for those kids yesterday. When I left the room, I sensed something was going on in that space, and the person who was actually facilitating the group was a former, Everything Connects, a former middle school principal in Livingston County that many moons ago I had worked with. And he said, "Oh my gosh, RJ, I haven't seen you in forever." And he said, "What you said in that room," because I talked about my family, my dad who didn't graduate from high school, my grandparents that didn't make it through 8th grade, and my uncle who died at the age of 52 from a lifetime of drug abuse. And he said that room was all about getting these students through yesterday, one day at a time, helping them see. And I can't help but think the life of my own family would have turned out far differently had they grown up in a place that had community schools that were strong and had a place for them to learn. So that is something that people can't always see We talk about our elementary schools and they're beautiful, and our high school and our middle school and so on. But there are programs that occur in this district that do not occur in public institutions elsewhere. And it's because our school board, the people before us, have built a brand that has allowed us to leverage that brand, to be financially solvent, to have a vision, and to take care of each other, regardless of what we look like or where we're from. And yesterday, when I left the Roar Center, especially after this week, I lost it. I lost it because hearing stuff going back and forth and whatnot, what I knew and what I saw and experienced in my heart was the fact that what we do here as a community, is something to be proud of. And I just hope we can all go away tonight thinking and realizing that maybe, just maybe, we have more in common than we realize. And at the very least, to be proud that there are people out there in this world who made it through yesterday because of the work we do here. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Weber, and thank you for the reminder. Appreciate you and being so vulnerable and sharing your experience. We will now move on to our board communication. If any board members have any comments or anything to share, please raise your hand. Mr. Smith, you want to be first, I know it.
Unfortunately, I have like 5 bullet points I want to try to fly through. So,
Okay, go ahead.
And I'll try to, plus I don't mind following these heavy dudes. First is I try to visit the other schools. I know we all have our assignments, but one of the buildings I visited was our early education thing. And a lot of you know Jason Smith, who's the executive director for the NEF, his wife Andrea Smith, and I are co-chairs for Novi Youth Assistance. And by the way, I still have something in a box at my house I'm waiting for you about. So anyway, he knows what I'm talking about. So I had to stop in there and talk with Ann Hansen about some things that we're doing for NYA, and specifically the holiday, the holiday gift giving that we do. We shop for a family, and it was something that Tanya was involved with and responsible for. And while we were there, Ann had an opportunity to introduce me to a couple of the new teachers that are there. And probably 5 years ago, we really didn't recognize the teachers that are new in that building as new teachers to the district because they weren't in the union. They're treated differently, but they're new teachers to our district, and I think we should meet them. And I'm talking to Ann, and I'm talking to this lady, and she's like, I'm really glad everything worked out. I didn't think it was going to work out. And I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. She says, well, this is a part-time position, and I really need it full-time, and she's a really talented educator. And Ann calls Dr. Kinzer, and she's like, Gary, I got this candidate, blah, blah, really would be awesome. She's really great, and it'd be a great fit, but she needs full-time. And Gary's like, we'll figure it out, make it happen, offer the position. And so what they ended up working out was she teaches there, and then when school gets out, she goes to Orchard Hills, and she works with students more on a one-to-one basis, providing, coaching and special education. And it's just awesome. And like, those are the little things. And I said to Ann, I said, I didn't know about that. I don't think the board knows that stuff like that's going on. But that's an example of, Gary working with the building administrators, finding qualified candidates, hiring them, even if it means we need to kind of figure out how we're going to make this work, how we're going to pay for it. But it's a win for the little kids there. And if you guys haven't seen one of those classrooms, I mean, they're just adorable, these little kids that are in there. And they love her, and then she goes to OH and impacts other lives there. So, Gary, thank you for that work you do that nobody knows about that's so meaningful for our district. The second visit I had was to VO. I don't know how many of you have been to VO. It's still under construction. So that was their joke today is the teachers were talking about their theme for Halloween, and it's like, it's going to be construction. So I think they need some helmets. But what was weird is I was running late, and it was in the gym there. So if you've been there, you kind of got to walk through the back. And the garden there, I mean, this time of year, if you saw the garden that the NEF provided funds for with the help of Bosch, it is massive and full. And it was just, I'm like, holy smokes, I guess I never really went and visited one of these gardens. But, you know, Dr. O'Feely does a phenomenal job with that. I visited a lot of buildings, and their meeting was action-packed, and I don't want to use the teacher's name because it doesn't matter, but, you know, I got a chance to speak to a few people, and I said, if you need anything, you know, reach out. And I've said that to a lot of people a lot of times. Within 30 minutes, he reached out, you know, and he's like, hey, you know, we need some help with snacks, you know, not all the teachers have money, you know, for snacks, and within 30 minutes, he had whatever money, you know, $50, $60, you know, and he like broke down in tears. You know, it was just that immediate response. It doesn't take much. It just takes a response. You know, it just takes a response. So they're just, and that was cool. Is in my real job, I had a client meeting this afternoon in Troy, you know, far away, and the guy comes in, he's like, oh yeah, my niece just started as a new teacher in some elementary school. I'm like, what's her first name? I met her today, and that was so weird. So he's like, she loves it. And I'm like, well, of course she does. Third is not to pile on. I went to the Roar Center also. I went for different reasons. Yesterday was count day, and they had Mission Barbecue. So
I missed that.
You missed that? So, you know, it was.
You went to get counted?
I went to get counted.
Yeah. So we're going to be audited.
It was really good. But to RJ's point, between the ESL and it's funny, depending on when you go there, you'll see big groups of people standing out front, and they're similar in appearance, and it's just funny. I'm like, what are all those people doing out there? and the person I asked is, well, they're practicing, they're talking, they're practicing. I said, oh, okay. But NATC, career prep, as RJ talked about, and what was funny is the virtual school was there. I got to talk to Emily because she finally moved in. And I don't know how many of you know Emily, but I was waiting for her to finish a phone call. And I was talking to two of the virtual teachers, and on the window, on the outside, thank God, was a praying mantis like the size of this microphone. and we're all grossed out on this thing, and so thank God it's on the other side of the glass. And then Emily gets out, she comes over, and she's like, oh, what a beautiful creature. You know, and look at and she was, I don't know, the genus or the species or whatever, she's calling it by its real name, and look at those antennae, how cool that is. And I'm like, you're weird. But she's doing a great job there, so I love the Roar Center. You guys all should get out there. Fourth is, I just want to make sure I say it publicly, I'm working with Principal Carter, who was here earlier, in the Mental Health Alliance group at the high school. But on election day, doesn't take all day to vote. If you have a student that might be interested or a family member, I don't care who at this point, but I've coordinated with Paul Glantz at Imagine, and on that Tuesday, at least a couple of showings, maybe 11, maybe 2 in the afternoon, but we're going to do private showings for Novi students primarily for the movie Dear Evan Hansen. And I think it would be important that the kids have an opportunity to see that in a safe place, or at least with like-minded people. And I just want to make sure that I don't want anybody that, unfortunately, a lot of people say, I don't know what's it about. And I'm like, it's really complicated, but, you know, Google it. But as an only child raised by a single mother that had mental health issues, not my mom, me, it's a very powerful film. So then to business with us, I apologize, Dr. Ruskin, I don't know exactly the best way to bring this up, but
just keep at it.
I still hate masks, and I wish we could do more. I saw some of the verbiage, Dr. Matthews, that you put out based on the advice that we got from our attorney. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize our protection, if you will, as board members. My question is, would it be possible, or can I request, or how would I request that we have maybe at least a conference call with our attorney, whom I respect, but I just have a couple of questions that I think would be best answered. Like, I don't understand why we can't fight it, for lack of a better expression. And I understand it costs money and there's resources, but we're a district that leads. Why can't we lead the fight against this mask mandate in Oakland County that our governor doesn't think is necessary but for some reason Oakland County Health still is imposing that on our kids. All three of my kids got COVID. You all know that. They were sick for 2 or 3 or 4 days. It's been almost 2 years they've been sick with these masks. And their social and emotional development, I think, is being harmed daily. It's almost like, and don't read it, it's like get COVID, get over it, and then you've got your antibodies built up. It's better than any vaccine. And then let's move on and get these masks off and let the kids smile and laugh and see each other. So, I mean, that's my, but I just don't know why we can't at least explore what that would look like to push back against this Oakland County mandate. So that's it.
I'll work with Dr. Ruskin and we'll develop a strategy and I'll share it with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mennel?
I would like to echo what Mr. Smith says. I would certainly like an opportunity to have a dialogue with Tim Gardner, who, by the way, you know. He's sort of my go-to person whenever I ask for an opinion. He's always been fair, to the point, easy to understand. But I would certainly like the opportunity to have a dialogue with him.
Okay.
And not only for what I was going to say, Mr. Smith. Trustee Smith had said, but also just to educate us also on this confusing process that, clearly I don't understand. There seems to be a lot of confusion that's been created by the state, signing a budget and then, it's just really confusing. So this is one of those times where it would really be nice just to have a dialogue with him. So I would certainly like to be part of anything, and I'm sure you'll just open it up to the whole board. So I had a lot that I was going to say today, but it's not today, right? I mean, it's just a lot of stuff. First of all, a lot of stuff happened in the last couple of weeks that have been great in this district. Certainly, I had the opportunity to attend the pep rally last Friday afternoon. Took some time off of work to help out with that. The homecoming at night was just a great event. And what's cool is there's so many people, so many students that are involved. And people just think it's like a football game, but it's not. There's just so much that happens. You have the band involved. You have POM. You have the cheer team. We have a great parade. We and then of course all of the homecoming festivities, and then the football game, and then that ended with a win, which is always nice to win on homecoming. I also had an opportunity to attend a few cross country events. Yesterday, I got an opportunity to stop by the middle school football game. And I finished my night by attending the theater stage booster meeting yesterday. Tom likes to go visit a lot of the different buildings. I like to go make the rounds on booster meetings. And what's kind of cool is it seems like everybody on this board has different interests and it is kind of cool that we can sort of split ourselves up and kind of have some representation at these meetings. So. I don't really have much that I need to say that hasn't been said about the political meeting and the former teacher that spoke. I originally wasn't even planning on going. I was invited to a team dinner that the football team was going to have, and they had a real nice nighttime practice. It was just going to be a really cool event. But as I was getting folks reaching out to me and information, I felt compelled to go. And what I don't want people to think is because I attend something or I go somewhere that means automatically that I hate teachers or automatically means something. I love our teachers. I've said that for a million years. Been here for a while. I'm around property in this district as much as anybody here. I talk to just about anybody in this district, whether it's a parent, whether it's students, whether it's teachers. Are there times where we may have conversations that we don't agree? Certainly, but this notion that we can't go and get information, or if we do, that somehow, it means something nefarious is just something that I wish we can get over. So I mean, that's as far as I want to go. I do have a lot of issues that at some point I want to address. I think I will try again to meet with Dr. Matthews and preface those and share those with him. A lot of things that have been shared with me by parents in this district over the past months now. I mean, really, stuff that has really, honestly depressed me. And I certainly want to get that addressed soon. And listen, I don't know if I've ever been prouder as a board member after listening to audience comments tonight. First of all, I couldn't say anything better than what most members of the community had to say, and I do understand there is a lot of frustration. I know there's some folks that are frustrated with me because they perceive I have certain viewpoints and perceptions about certain issues, and that's fine. That's fine. But I do hope that this divide that we have, and a lot of it is clearly around curriculum topics, that we'll be able to discuss it and work together, maybe as a team, as a group, to kind of get to the root cause of it and try to resolve these things so that everybody sort of has an understanding of what it is that we're trying to accomplish in this district, and see if we can come to an agreement on best way to get there, and without alienating anyone along the way. So thank you all for your comments tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Menem. Any other comments from board members?
Woody.
Mrs. Hood?
Thank you. Thank you. So I attended the dedication of the Novi Woods Hammock Garden last Friday. What a nice event. It's a wonderful place for kids to read and contemplate. A lot has been in the news, so I won't repeat it here, other than thanking all who contributed. It was the brainchild of Mrs. Domberger, but supported by the Novi Educational Foundation, DTE. They had their big truck there. The kids loved it. The Novi Woods PTO and DTE had several, I'll say executives, so several managers there. And they said that they were helping other schools around southeastern Michigan to create their own hammock gardens. Cool. So, yeah, really cool. I think celebration is in order, as our state representative Kelly Breen secured a $400,000 grant for the NEF to support our outdoor learning. And I just think it's a nice example of a representative listening to her constituents and advocating for the children of Novi. I know there's a lot more to come, a lot more planning, et cetera. We've already talked about homecoming. It was kind of fun to see. I did not go into the stands. I was down under the...
She ignored me, is what she did.
I walked away from you, granted, I did. But the sea of humanity in the stands was crazy. And all the little kids running back and forth. It was really a very nice evening. Fanfare on Saturday. And Dr. Matthews, just to... because some people complain about the kind of the steep, not initiation fee, entrance fee to that. The boosters have to pay all the expensive, pay all the judges, their transport, all of that. So it should be a good show. I hope it doesn't rain. Yeah, and then, a few people have asked me this week whether I was surprised by the events described in the blog post. He's back there. And I would say not really. So I did not attend the Republican Club presentation last week, and so I can't confirm what happened there. However, over the summer, I Googled this former teacher, and her presentation has been, she's been out there. So I Googled her, and in the spirit of seeking to understand, watched a video of her reading her, at that time, she was basically reading her bullet points of school outrage at a church in Northville. So just a little commentary from me about that as a school board member. She repeatedly cited the Christian gospel, her conservative Christian values, biblical morality, the United States Constitution, and the claim that the United States was founded on Christianity. So no one has apparently told her that the Constitution has 4,500 words, and not one of them is God, Jesus, Christianity, or Bible. And that is just so basic that it hurts my feelings when I hear teachers say that. So anyway, I found her commentary ridiculous. This was at the church. This is the video I watched. But I thought her commentary was ridiculous, and obviously so many parts of it were not true, knowing what I know about Novi schools. But the effects of her speech are harmful to our schools because people believe her. So in the video I watched, and I probably watched it in August, it was taped in July, after she established herself as a practitioner of conservative Christian values, she proceeded to tell her audience the ways that she worked to undermine our district's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and bullied or was disrespectful towards our kids. Our kids, these are Novi kids. She is a former Novi teacher. This isn't like a Grand Ledge teacher scouring the state, giving this presentation. She's a former Novi teacher. She was talking about our kids, our LGBTQ kids, our African American kids, our trans kids, our confused or unsure kids, our Muslim kids, our kids who expressed concern about climate change. She mocked them. And when she finished what I felt was her shameful narrative, the audience applauded. And I found that alarming. So, pardon my indignation on this, but, and this topic has never been on our agenda, and so we've never talked about it, right? And so I've never talked about it, but I just, after Mr. Asher's post, I just felt compelled that I needed to respond in some way. So I don't think this is about politics. This isn't about some former teacher who's on her 15 Minutes of Fame tour. This is about the children who attend Novi Community Schools and our commitment and obligation to care for them, all of them. And speaking of gospels, and you were kind of channeling this earlier, speaking of gospels, you weren't talking the gospel.
Oh, I can.
But it is up to us to provide our schools, to provide extra care to the 1 out of 100 who at any given time needs it. So as a parent and a grandparent, I'm not a grandparent, but as parents or grandparents could probably relate, when one of your kids comes into the house or calls you and they're upset or they're crying, whether they're 4 or 24, I think every parent's first response is, oh my gosh, honey, what's wrong? How can I help you? And one of my favorite people in the world was Mr. Rogers. And when he was a kid, I'm sure everybody's heard this, it makes me cry, so I probably shouldn't say it, but when he was a kid and he was scared by something, his mom would tell him, look for the helpers. I believe our schools are filled with helpers, including our kids. And I think often kids are sometimes the adults in the room. So we need to do a better job of listening to our kids, all of our kids. And so I don't think this is about politics. It's about whether we, as a community school district, a community public school district, whether we are committed to fulfilling our vision and goals, and especially goal number 3, which is to foster a district-wide culture of unity and well-being. That is one of our goals. We set it how many years ago now? The whole community took part. That's one of our goals. And we can do that by helping and respecting every one of our students where they are. Where they are. Thank you. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I too was at that meeting. And I'm just appalled by what has come out of it. You know, Willie and I have been vilified because we attended I went there as the same as I'm sure RJ, Dr. Asher, and the rest of the group in the back of the room. I went there to see what she was saying. I did not know she had 15,000 videos out on Google. I had seen snippets, but I have busier things to do than sit there and look at Google. Sorry. So I went under, I'm going to see what this lady has to say, what she's saying. I saw some snippets and I thought, gosh, that doesn't bode well with me. So I wanted to learn. I'm being called dirty, hateful, because I wanted to go learn and hopefully come back and say, okay, this lady is saying this stuff. Tell me it's wrong. Because I know some of it is true, because we've talked about it at the board meetings. So, I mean, there's been so much thrown around about me and Willie. I mean, I told Willie I was ready to resign. That's how upset I was about it. So, I mean, that's all I have to say. I think nobody has a great school system, but being personally attacked by it, it's not worth it.
We support you, Mary.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, I am going to bring us back to school-related stuff. I see on Mary Ann's note here that the band boosters need help with concessions during band fairs, so I will mention that for one thing. The other thing is, I too had a chance to get to the pep rally. Mine was more by mistake than anything else. Having a son with an IEP who does not do well in those situations, I was there for support. I do want to say that any high school football game, you will find more volunteers there behind the scenes than you will find players on the field. And it's a community event, and the community really puts forward to it. And it was amazing the energy that was coming out of the stands finally. We've had a few years where it was kind of lackluster in the stands, but now it's, in the last few games, we've noticed that the energy has really increased. I had a chance to talk to Mr. Baker, and he shared a story with me about a couple of students at the middle school who had a little bad luck. And he told me this because of what one of the students did. There was name calling, a little bit shoving, and things didn't get resolved. But one of the students went to Mr. Baker and said, I did wrong. I think I did wrong. I need your help to make things right. And Mr. Baker did. He helped that student. And I know back when I was a kid, if I would have gone to the principal and said I did wrong, I probably would have been suspended. You know, that's not how things are done this way. That's because of our teachers, our administrators, our principals, all the support our kids have. They're not afraid to go to them and say, I did wrong, please help me. I also got a chance to go, like Mr. Mena, to the middle school football game. And I don't know, I'm sure some of you were there because of family members playing, but we kind of had two middle school football teams. One's a club team and one's the middle school team. And it was so nice to see about half of the club team there supporting the middle school team and cheering them on and calling for other players to do well. And even though they had to get off practice, they were there supporting them. And that's more of a community too. They're not competing against each other. They're not saying you guys are, you know, no good. They're supporting them. That was, you know, and the coaches at the club team actually pointed that out because one of their players was their son and was there, and they noticed it. I've also been to a few soccer games, and the parents are so thankful we did a second JV team this year, giving a lot more kids the opportunity to play. The parents love it, the kids love it. Tuesday night they had 3 games on that field. And the maintenance crew, the way they maintain that field, I don't think you could go to any other school playing on grass and have 3 consecutive games and the field hold up like ours does. You know, the maintenance crew on that field is top notch. And the parents appreciate it, the players surely appreciate it, and it's great to just go watch the game there, so. I think that's all my bullet points, so.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I have nothing else to say. But no, really, obviously you can see there's a lot of emotion here in our community. A lot has happened over the last couple of weeks or a week. We went from the highs of having an amazing homecoming for these kids. They got to be together at a football game and a parade and a pep rally and watch their teachers do the staff student dance and have the cheerleaders and the pom girls get with the different teams and do routines, and football players play amazing games. And we went from that to something that really just had some broken hearts, some tears, some feelings of divide. And so, I really have nothing else to add. People have asked me, will you please say this about this board member? Will you do this? Or will you speak for the board? And if you've all known me as a leader, I don't do that. I don't make assumptions of why board members go places and do things until I sit and talk to them. You heard tonight why people attend different events throughout the community, whether it be right or wrong. And so until we know, we have a former employee who I will not say anything about what was said at her meetings that she provides that's already been shared, but there's rabbit holes that have been produced, and people have gone down them and found pain and agony and a place where our brand is just not feeling good. And so somebody here asked for transparency tonight, and you got it. I'm sure more than you probably wanted. And I have an example of something that, I get to hear all these things, but I also get to hear the good. And a couple weeks ago, we had a committee meeting, and we had some parents who were concerned about some things, and so they brought those forward. And I watched content area leaders, a teacher, a parent who respectfully found her way for what she needed for her kiddo. And it ended in a result that student, however their needs looked, whether we agree or disagree, whether that's how our curriculum should look, that they were given what they needed as a student. And so while also keeping what other students need. And so that is just one example that's happening behind the scenes. And are we perfect? We're certainly not. But I see parents in the room who are arguing for something that they should be and asking for transparency and wanting to work with the board and be parents of this community, who are also, on the other hand, supporting sports teams and putting themselves out there and spending hours in their day to make sure that the kids maybe don't see everything that's going on behind the scenes. So we will continue to work together and heal and be transparent, and please keep coming and asking the really hard questions, whether you think people in the audience agree with you or disagree with you, but that's really the only way we're gonna continue to heal and move forward as a community. And don't let one particular person, whether we agree with that person or not, kind of direct our narrative, because in this room is our narrative, and that's kind of where we need to go, is focus on our kids and just not lose our way. So you're good over there.
It's okay.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate that, you know, board members come to me, whether they think I'm going to agree with them or not, just to bounce ideas off of me and to be transparent and have a conversation and let me say, you know, it's okay. You did nothing wrong. Even if my viewpoint is maybe different, we're all here to learn, and the only way we're gonna do better for our kids is to be open to our own viewpoint and to others. And so I think this is the first step, and it was a great meeting. And I lied, Dr. Matthews said, what time do you think we'll be done? And I said 8:40, and here we are, and we spent a good 50 minutes really talking about things that truly do matter, and that's our kids. So everybody have a great night, and thank you for spending your time here and being passionate about your kids' education.
Adjourn.
Oh,
I move to adjourn the meeting.
oh yes, I forgot about that part. Recommended by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
Opposed?